Hello, everybody, and welcome back. This is Suspects and Spirits, and I'm your host, Taylor Seraphin. Welcome back, Boo Crew, Ghouligans, True Crime Nerds. I hope you are all enjoying your day. I certainly am, because we just decorated for Halloween. Yep. I told my husband I would wait at the very least until Labor Day weekend. And hey, it's Labor Day weekend. So I'm in a good spooky mood. We got the yard decorated and inside the house. I have the blankets in the dryer as we speak. I'm currently cooling off, drinking my iced caffeine water because it is gross outside. It may be Halloween in my heart, but in Arizona, it is 1,000 degrees. And since we just did the yard, there's a lot of sweat in a lot of places. Lots of boob sweat happening. I don't even have boobs, but they're sweating. And oh, you guys, my little and I, we went to Spirit Halloween this weekend because that is my second home. I went to the mothership and I got the cutest shit. Target too. We went to Target. We had to go everywhere. And I got this little phone that rings all spooky when you press the button and all these different monsters like talk to you. I freaking love it. My little has been obsessed with it, calling all the monsters. She's definitely my child. I cannot explain to you though, like just the serotonin boost that I get from Spirit Halloween or just like any Halloween decor that I see. I have always been this way. Like just since I was a little ankle biter. I don't know. It's so funny because people will be like, "Oh my gosh, like wow, you're really into Halloween." And I'm like, "No, I am Halloween." But recently I had somebody, well, we'll call them Judy for their own safety and privacy. And Judy was like, "When did Taylor get so weird?" Um, I hate to break it to you, Judy, but I've always been this weird. I just probably wasn't comfortable enough around you to let it show. I don't know. I'm a Taurus, and in true Taurus fashion, it takes me approximately 11 years and 5 business days to like get comfortable around someone. So maybe you just didn't stick around long enough to see the weird. And honestly, it doesn't seem like you'd match my vibe anyways, so good call. Some people come into your life for a reason, right? Others for a season, but apparently that season is not fall, not for duty. So, anywho, back to my fun Halloween finds. The phone is so cute, you guys. I will be doing a TikTok for Booze Clue soon, and I'll be sure to somehow incorporate the phone into the video so that you can see it because it's that cool. So, that's what I've been up to. And then I did want to hop on here. I'm about to get serious really quick. I wanted to hop on here and just mention, some of you have been messaging me, talking to me about the recent events that happened in Minneapolis, the school shooting. And I have many opinions. I have many thoughts. I'm sending out, so much love and healing to the families and the children and everybody affected. But in all honesty, like as much as I do, I want to hug every single parent and child affected. It's horrific. But love and healing and thoughts and prayers, they're not going to do much of anything at all. We need to do better. So a lot of you have messaged me and said, "Are you going to talk about this?" I wanted to. I have been waiting to talk about it because there were a lot of emotions that came with it, and I didn't want to just spew all of the thoughts racing through my brain. I wanted to take a minute, take a beat to gather my thoughts and say it in a better way so it doesn't come out so unhinged. Okay. But every time this shit happens, it not only sickens me and infuriates me, it terrifies me. School just started. Those babies just started school. All they did was go to mass. That's it. They woke up, got ready for school, went to morning mass at school, and look at what happened. As you know, I'm a teacher. This is a very real, very daily fear for all educators, all children, and all parents of school age children. And that includes college kids as well. And I say kids because even though they're 18, 19, 20, 21, their frontal lobe still isn't developed. They are children. Okay. Think about how dumb you were when you were that age. Those are kids. We need to protect our children better. And the next time you want to complain about, the supply list, the homework, the curriculum, or any other dumb complaint you have against us teachers, Remember who would literally take a bullet for your child. We are with your kids 8 hours a day. We love them. We watch them grow. We build a family with them. We encourage them. We protect them. And we always will. But it's so important to keep in mind that many teachers also have kids who attend their school. So we're parents too. And each day we go to work ready to be human shields for your babies. Meanwhile, ours are out there too without their moms or dads in the room with them. And I would trust any educator I work with to ensure the safety of my child during an emergency. But we shouldn't even have to think about that. We have to do better. We need better gun laws. And if that offends you, then respectfully, please go fuck yourself because children should be able to go to school and learn without the fear of things like this happening. And educators who don't get money for fucking pencils and glue should not be expected to also be a human shield. Yet, here we are, and we'll do it too. Do not mess with our babies. We are mama bears and papa bears, and we will protect those children. So call whoever you need to call, but change starts with the people. There are more of us than there are of them. And if you're against children being allowed to be safe at school, God bless. God bless you. Okay. No one wants to take away your stupid guns, but we do want strict laws to ensure that people who will not use them properly do not have access to them. In other countries, not only do you need to pass a test and a psych eval to get a gun license, you also have to provide references. And then they call those references and they ask them, would you feel comfortable with this person owning a gun? And then there's also an extensive course you have to take about gun safety. I can't go get Sudafed or freaking lawn darts. Like, I can't get health insurance, a drivable car, birth control, or asthma medication, a reliable babysitter, a timely dishwasher repairman. But you can go to the store or even fucking online and get yourself an automatic rifle or a handgun. That is insane to me. America needs to do better. Our kids should not have anxiety about going to school because they don't know if there will be a lockdown that day. Learning should be fun. School should be one of the safest places for children. We not only need better gun laws, but we need more access to mental health care. I mean, that is a big part of it too. And it's devastating to see what is happening in our society. So we need to do better, guys. Call who you need to call, do what you need to do, but change it. The school year just started. We shouldn't even be having this conversation at all, ever. This is not okay. I just wanted to talk about that because a lot of you had been DMing me, messaging me, asking me how I felt. And thank you for, sending me articles and things like that. I really appreciate it. And I appreciate all the support that you guys show every single day. You're awesome. And I'm so sorry to bring up such a heavy topic, at the top of this episode, but I do really feel that it needs to be said. It's important. I think as a society we can do better for our children. So let's start. Now, I am a teacher, but I'm also a podcaster and you guys came here for a story. So I'll stop being quote unquote political for now, so that we can get into today's episode. And today's episode is a spooky one. You guys, we are going to be exploring a story that sounds like it was ripped out of a horror movie, but this was not fiction. This was a young family in a perfectly ordinary house who found themselves under siege by something that they couldn't see, but they could definitely feel it. This is the case of the South Shields Poltergeist, one of the most violent and bizarre hauntings of the 21st century. So let's get into it. Let's start at the beginning. This story begins in late 2005 in South Shields, which is a coastal town in northeast England. The home belonged to a woman, Marianne, and her partner, Mark, and then their 3-year-old son, Robert. From the outside, their home looked like any other, working class family's house, a very modest place, very cozy. But by the time the investigators got involved, it had become a spiritual battleground. This haunting didn't start with, flying furniture or scratches on the walls. At first, it was very, very subtle. Doors that had been locked at night were found to be wide open in the morning. Objects seemed to start appearing in strange places. Chairs would shift, tables moved, a few inches this way or that. It could be chalked up to forgetfulness. But the disturbances grew louder, bolder, and very soon it became clear that whatever was in the house had one terrifying focus: Robert, the family's 3-year-old son. We're diving straight into this story. So let's talk about Robert. Robert was a happy, well mannered boy. Like many kids, he had what his mother assumed was an imaginary friend. He called him Sammy. He said that Sammy played with him in his room and kept him company, made him laugh. And at first, nothing about that seemed unusual. Plenty of children invent imaginary companions. My sister actually had an imaginary friend when she was little. It was Davy Crockett. Yeah. We still tease her to this day. But she had an imaginary friend. He had a seat at the dinner table. It's all pretty normal. But as the activity in this story, in this home intensified, Marianne began to wonder if Sammy wasn't just a product of her son's imagination, if maybe this was something more real. Objects in Robert's room seemed to move on their own. His small plastic table and chairs never stayed where they were put. Toys would launch across the room, ricocheting off walls and doors. One toy rabbit was found propped up in a chair at the top of the stairs, clutching a box cutter blade that had never been anywhere near Robert's toys. So creepy. It was not just unnerving, it was dangerous. And this was just the beginning. Guys, we're just getting started. Things escalated pretty quickly after this. Robert's rocking horse in his room began showing up in places randomly around the house, just places that it didn't belong. It moved from one room to the other without anyone touching it. One day, Marianne's brother discovered it hanging by its reins from the attic hatch, just dangling there. That would freak me out. I'd be like, we're getting rid of this rocking horse. Absolutely not. That is not normal. And Marianne agreed. That was her breaking point. The family threw the toy outside in the yard overnight, hoping that, removing it would put an end to whatever was happening. But when they woke up the next morning, the rocking horse was back inside the house. No one had touched it. No one had brought it in. It was just there. I'd be out. I'd say, moving. We're moving. By June 2006, the family was exhausted and terrified, understandably so. The activity had not stopped. It had only intensified. It was just getting worse and worse. Chairs moved while people were sitting in them. Objects were hurled across the house, and sinister messages began appearing on Robert's magnetic doodle board. You guys remember those doodle boards, right? I loved those things, man. We have some actually. But I don't love this. I don't love that this poltergeist decided to use the doodle board to send messages to the family. It was leaving messages like, die. No, thank you. No, thank you. Immediately, no. I would get rid of the doodle board. Like, you don't need that anymore. We don't need this house. We're moving. So after seeing this message appear on the doodle board, that is when Marianne reached out for help. So that same June, in 2006, Marianne contacted Darren Ritson, who was a paranormal investigator. She told him that she was terrified, that her son was being targeted, and that she was desperate for help. And at first, Darren tried to reassure her. He told her that most poltergeist cases tend to burn out on their own within a few weeks. But the thing is that the family had already been dealing with strange events since the previous December. So surely they thought maybe it'll be over soon. But as it turns out, the opposite was true. The activity didn't fade, it escalated. So Darren and his colleague, Michael Hallowell, went to the house to see for themselves. And what they found left no room for doubt. Within minutes of stepping into Robert's bedroom, objects were flying across the room. A small plastic nut from one of Robert's toys shot across the air with such force that it smacked Marianne hard enough to leave a mark on her head. Neither investigator could explain this. Much of the activity centered on Robert's room, and soon, unfortunately, the little boy himself. If something was ever targeting my child, they got another thing coming. get my holy water, my cross. I'm not even that religious, but you better believe I'll be praying. Absolutely not. Stay away from my kids. So after the poltergeist decided to target Robert instead of just his room, Marion and Mark decided they couldn't take it anymore. They packed up their things and decided to stay elsewhere. Good call. I would do the same. But when they went to wake up Robert, they did not find him in bed. He was on the floor, tightly wrapped in his quilt, pinned down by his small plastic table. His eyes were wide open, but he was still asleep, almost like he was in a trance. I would lose my shit if I saw that. I would call an old priest, a young priest. What do? You obviously you get him out of that situation, but that is terrifying to see your child like that. And he didn't do that to himself. He's wrapped up in blankets, trapped under the table. Like the feet of the table, the legs of the table are pinned down on his blanket and he's wrapped up super tight. There's no way he could wrap himself up in a blanket with his arms tucked in there and then also get the table to pin down the blanket on top of him. And he's 3. Absolutely not. No way he could do that. And this wasn't the only time this happened, you guys. There was another time after frantic searching that they found him fast asleep in a wardrobe, cocooned in blankets. And there was no way he'd done this to himself. He was not trying to go to Narnia, I promise you. And then came more of that writing on the doodle board. Phrases like the one before, die, would appear. Another one that would appear said, go now. And then the most chilling of all, see you. Not, I see you. Hi, silly. Just, see you. It reminds me of Annabelle's Creation. You guys know, if you've seen it, you know, the little girl would play with her dad, hide and seek, and he'd come home. And that's where the whole note thing came from, Annabelle leaving notes. But she would write a note in crayon. Hi, see you. Find me. That's what this is reminding me of. Ugh, I hate it. As the weeks went by, though, the messages didn't just appear on toys. They started to come through electronics. Remember, this is 2006 at this point. So there was text messaging. Text messages began arriving on Marianne's phone and even through the family's landline. They were getting messages on their landline. Some were eerily benign, like, hi, 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 which I hate that too. I don't even like that. But others turned very threatening. There was one that was left that said, you're going to die today. I'm sorry. You have the wrong number. Goodbye. What do you even say to that? There was another one that said, I'll get you while you're awake. I'll come for you when you're asleep. No. Nope. That's like Krampus, the scary Santa. I'll get you while you're awake. I'll come for you when you're asleep. No, thank you. You are not welcome here. And then at one point, when Marianne tried to leave the house, another message appeared that said, please don't go. I'll come with you. No, you may not. The power of Christ compels you. Oh my gosh, that would just send me. Messages on your landline and text messages. That's creepy as hell. And before you ask, before you're like, oh, well, maybe it was from someone in the family messing around or, a friend is prank calling them. They looked into that. And these were not texts that could be explained by someone in the family just messing around. On one occasion, the text came from Mark's phone while it was sitting on the table in front of everyone. And get this, the battery and his SIM card were removed. Yes, we were able to remove batteries from phones back then. I know, crazy. So even with all of that, the messages still kept coming. But it didn't stop at messages. Soon the attacks became physical. Marianne was nearly struck by knives. Knives. Hurled across the kitchen at her. Knives, you guys. No. And then heavy furniture was tipped over and moved. Like a whole ass couch. Just flipped up and moved. Tipped over. And then there were the loud footsteps and the giggles that echoed through Robert's room when no one was in there. I'm out. Goodbye. Now, during all of this, a lot of these occasions, Darren was present, the paranormal investigator and his buddy, and they started to see that a lot of this violence was directed at Mark. So it was after Robert, but a lot of the aggressiveness was directed at Mom's partner, Mark. At one point, with the investigators there, he began to feel very sharp, burning pains across his body, only to lift his shirt and find scratches appearing right in front of all the witnesses. The investigators were there, and it wasn't just them. They actually had friends over that day. They were present, and they swore that they saw the cuts forming in real time. On one occasion, more than 10 people watched as Mark was brutally scratched with blood drawn and his skin shredded. And then, within 48 hours, the wounds would just heal almost completely, like they were just gone. It was terrifying. It was sadistic, and it seemed to grow stronger by the day. And this investigation, this haunting, you guys, lasted for 7 months. For 7 months, Darren Ritson and Michael Hollowell investigated the South Shields house. They used locked-off cameras, motion detectors, witness statements, even consulted phone engineers to try and debunk, the strange text messages and voicemails. The engineers could not explain it. The phones weren't active. The SIM cards weren't even in place, but still those messages were coming through. The entity seemed to know when evidence was being gathered, too. It was very smart. So photos and videos would mysteriously just vanish from phones. But wait, there's more. There were liquids that would appear. I hate that already. Liquids would appear as red stains in the toilet that looked like blood, or they would find urine, like strange urine-like patches on the carpet. And then they would just disappear before they could be sampled. It was as if that haunting was one step ahead, determined to, taunt and terrify the family, but then leave no proof behind. So all of this stuff was happening, and they couldn't get it sampled. They couldn't collect evidence for it. But so many people were seeing it happen. By late 2006, the family was at a breaking point. They were exhausted, they were terrified, and they had no idea why they had been targeted for this nightmare. And then, as suddenly as it began, the activity began to slow down. On the advice of investigators, the family began switching off the electricity at night. Whether that cut off whatever energy the entity was feeding on, no one could really say. But apparently it seemed to help. And gradually, the violent attacks stopped. The messages faded, and the objects stayed where they belonged. The South Shields poltergeist seemed to just vanish. But for Marianne, Mark, and Robert, the damage had already been done. They aren't even really sure what caused all of that activity to stop. But it did. And maybe it was feeding off of the energy in the home. I couldn't tell you. Now, poltergeist cases, they often leave more questions than explanations as it is. And this was no different. Why this family? Why this home? Was Robert, with his imaginary friend Sammy, was that the focus? Many poltergeist cases center around children or adolescents, which we know, unfortunately. But some investigators later wondered if Mark himself was the true target, since the worst of the physical attacks seemed to just zero in on him, the scratches, all of that. And why did it stop? Was it really the electricity being cut off, or did the entity simply grow tired and move on to another place, another family? Because there are stories where that happens too, where it just gradually fades out. Just like Darren had mentioned, many poltergeist cases, things will tend to fade over time. But even the investigators admitted they had no idea. They were like, couldn't tell you. We don't know. They could only say this. Whatever it was real. They saw it, they heard it, and in some cases, they felt it. So here is some witness testimony. Marianne herself described the relentless torment. She said, quote, "When I was outside the house, it would continuously call my mobile from our home phone, even though I knew for certain that no one was in the house. It sent me death threats by text. No matter what I did, I couldn't get away from it." End quote. If that was happening to me, I would say absolutely not. We are Amish now, and we're going to go join the Amish community. No more phones, no more electricity, nothing. Thank you so much. Goodbye. And then there's other testimony from the investigators who experienced that terror firsthand. Mike Hallowell later recalled, quote, the entity walked slowly from the bathroom, across the landing, into the bedroom. Its face, devoid of all features, such as eyes, nose, or mouth, was cold and menacing. It felt like it was burrowing into my soul. It was large, maybe 2 meters in height, and midnight black, a 3-dimensional silhouette that just radiated sheer evil. End quote. Oh, I don't like it. Again, giving like Annabelle vibes. I hate it. When the mom goes downstairs, the baby's asleep, Leah's asleep upstairs, and Mia goes downstairs to put the cardboard in the storage unit, and then she sees the demon. So Mike Hallowell says he saw that. He saw that. That's fun. And his colleague, Darren Ritson, echoed that conviction. He said, quote, "What I saw during that case has convinced me beyond all doubt. The phenomenon is a real one. I was skeptical in my approach to the South Shields case, and although this case proved to be the one that convinced me this phenomenon is real, a healthy skepticism is a requirement while investigating these claims, but it has to accompany an open mind too. Be skeptical of people, not the poltergeist." End quote. Which I think is a good point. Sometimes people make up stories, things like that. Be skeptical of the people, not of the poltergeist. Like, be open to that being a possibility. These investigators, like, how do you sleep at night? What do you do? Do you say Our Father and then just go? Do you just like watch SNL and then go to bed? Man, I love ghost hunting, but when it comes to demonic stuff, I'm a big baby. I will pee my pants. Ugh, that's scary. Now, when it came to the physical attacks, they're saying that they saw the entity, they felt it. But when it came to the attacks on Mark, Mike Hallowell said very bluntly, quote, "You could actually watch the scratches forming. Cuts started to appear on the right-hand side of his back. They immediately bled." End quote. Very not good. Would not want that to happen to me, and I probably would not want to witness that. Well, I don't know. Maybe I would, just to for validation, but at the same time I wouldn't, because you don't want people getting hurt and you don't want shit like this happening necessarily. But man, that is something you don't see every day. So this case started to get a lot of attention in England, obviously, and the Society for Psychical Research, SPR, later reviewed the case. They noted that Mark seemed to be a focal point, consistent with patterns where emotional stress heightens activity. And they actually considered some of the framework of the haunted people syndrome, which I guess is a thing. It is a blend of psychological and environmental factors. So they considered that. Yet they admitted that not everything could be neatly explained. They were like, this is a little weird, right? Like, I can't explain some of this stuff. Some critics, however, accuse the investigators of holding back evidence, with one review stating that withholding went against the very point of paranormal inquiry, the search for the truth. But there is no proof, proof of proof. There's no proof that they withheld evidence, that they withheld proof. So I think that was just critics being critics, which they're allowed to do. Other skeptics, of course, have weighed in as well. The parapsychologist Chris French remarked, quote, "On the basis of the quality of the evidence that is available, I would bet against them being the result of ghosts and poltergeists, but I could be wrong." End quote. I mean, at least he's saying he could be wrong, right? Growth mindset. Good for him. Other skeptics pointed to more mundane explanations, juvenile trickery, memory lapses, misinterpreted events, or environmental triggers like lighting and magnetic fields. Joe Nickel, we know Joe. Joe Nickel loves to be a skeptic, doesn't he? He was very skeptical about the Warrens, too. You might remember him from my Annabelle case. He was very blunt. He usually is. He said, quote, "When a supposedly poltergeist incident occurs, usually it could be accomplished by a juvenile trickster determined to plague credulous adults." End quote. Juvenile tricksters, which I played a lot of pranks as a kid. I never did any of that though. If your kid is telling people that they're going to die, maybe have a talk with them. That's not a prank. That's scary. Don't do that. I don't think that's a juvenile prank that most juveniles would play. That's a lot. And then there's public opinion, Most public forums remain pretty divided on this, which is very common. One commenter said, quote, The conclusion is usually that people are misremembering what happens and generally piling lots of individually explicable events together under the heading of a haunting. End quote. Others countered, quote, if we're not able to perfectly explain the causes, then denying the possibility of something simply because we lack the ability to quantify it is a bit foolish. End quote. Which, here, that's what I keep telling everybody. We can't always see it. That doesn't mean it's not real. Can't see oxygen, but we breathe it every day. So this case was very intense, right? Very wild. And even 15 years later, Darren Ritson admitted that this case still haunts him. He called the activity a kind of paranormal contagion, something that can infect a home, a family, even an investigator. Something that once you've seen it, you cannot forget it, which that stands out to me. And this whole case stands out because of the sheer volume of evidence, witnesses, friends, investigators, photographs, recordings, text messages. But skeptics argue that it just was not enough. After all, there were no lab samples or irrefutable proof. So they're welcome to be as skeptical as they want. But maybe that's the most chilling part. If something is powerful enough to injure, terrify, and torment a family, it could also erase its own tracks. And maybe that's what they were dealing with, something far more cunning and intelligent than we would like to believe because it makes us feel better to say that could never happen. But really, I mean, there's no way that we are the most intelligent creatures out here, you guys. There's no way. I believe to my core that there are other forms of intelligent beings out there, whether that be aliens or ghosts or what. And you can believe whatever you want, right? I'm not here to tell anyone what to believe, but yeah. But I think that definitely there are things that we will never understand, things that we cannot see, and people will continue and continue and continue to try and find evidence of these things to validate their thoughts. But at the end of the day, that's kind of the fun of it, right? We might just never know. And that's what makes these so interesting, so fascinating, and also really terrifying. But what do you guys think? Was the South Shields poltergeist real? Was it a hoax? Was it something in between? Was it just a kid playing jokes? And if it was a kid playing jokes, we need to get that kid some therapy. I want to know what you guys have to say about this story. Did you know about it? It's like well known in England, but I don't think here in the United States we've heard about this story much. So if you've heard about it, I'd love to hear your thoughts. If not, I still want to hear your thoughts. And at the end of the day, for Marianne, Mark, and little Robert, it didn't really matter what anyone else believed. They lived through it. And to this day, they'd tell you it was no joke. They went through something very traumatic, and I think that we should be respectful of that. But I definitely want to hear your thoughts about the case. So let me know. DM me, comment when I post the video. I'm sure it's probably already up today. So, yeah, that, my friends, is the story of the South Shields poltergeist. Very, very spooky. And I want to hear your stories. So don't forget to send them in to me. I might not be able to include them for this Boost Clues episode that's coming up, but the next one I will try. I will try to include it. And if not, it'll be in the next one. So send in your stories. I want to hear them. Thank you for listening. Thank you for doing your laundry with me or vacuuming or cleaning up toys around your house for the 10 millionth time. And don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe. Go follow the podcast on social media, Facebook, TikTok, Instagram. Go buy some merch. All the things, all the housekeeping stuff. Go support the pod. And of course, if you enjoyed this episode, do not forget to share it. Share it with your friend who likes spooky stuff. Share it with your family. Sit down and listen to it with your dog or your cat or your fish. I'm sure that they would like it. It is spooky season after all. So, and for any of you guys saying it's not, it is. Okay. Pumpkin spice lattes are back out. It is spooky season, baby. And we are going to live it up. Don't yuck our yum, and we won't yuck your yum. Just be a good human. Okay. Be a good person. All right. That's all, you guys. Thank you for coming to my dead talk. And remember to trust your lizard brain. Until next time, goodbye.